I've been asked to give an overview of the implementation and assessment of the emotional learning, social emotional learning here at the Royal Academy in Bhutan. But I feel like if I am to do justice to uh, being able to paint a better picture of what the Royal Academy is doing at the moment, I would like to take some time off and then give everyone here a brief introduction to what the Royal Academy is all about. It's the idea behind its inception, the vision, and what is it that we're doing here that not just looks at the rote learning or the kind of education system that Dr. Ajanta had spoke about in his presentation. So if I just talk about the inception of the Royal Academy, His Majesty the King of Bhutan, Jigme Gesar Namgyal Wangchuk, he said that our nation's vision can only be fulfilled if the scope of our dreams and aspirations are matched by the reality of our commitment to nurturing our future citizens. And His Majesty the King and the kings before him has always recognized and associated our country's remarkable journey of modernization and development to our education system. Thus, with the same belief and value placed on education, His Majesty established the Royal Academy. So the Royal Academy consists of the school, the Education Research Center, and the Teacher Development Center. And these three entities, they work on the creation of a learning process that we are calling the Bhutan Baccalaureate. It is a system of education that strives to help learners actualize their potential across the 5 areas of development. So, although today we are just discussing the social and emotional, when we look at holistic education here, we look at it through the lens of the 5 areas of development. So, on top of social, emotional, we also have physical, cerebral, and the spiritual. So, our understanding of a holistic education is one that helps learners actualize their potentials in all the 5 areas of development. The Education Research Center works on the philosophy and the learning process of the Baccalaureate. And the Teacher Development Center helps understand the learning process and take it into the lives of the students. The school at the Royal Academy is the one that actually implements the learning process, which is contextualized to the school here in Bhutan, and it's located in Paro. All the while, these three centers, they work in synergy in order to constantly evolve the learning process, and not just evolve, but to continuously contextualize it to the learners as well as the teachers and the faculty members that we have here. So for us, this evolutionary mindset and the process is a necessary part of learning, for we believe that a learning that is solely focused on acquiring knowledge becomes obsolete with change in time and circumstances. Therefore, a holistic education system should uh, be one that enables learners with the necessary skills, the necessary processes and watermarks, which will allow them to keep up with the demands and needs of the changing time. And more importantly, learn how to learn so that they're able to become lifelong learners. The vision of the academy is based on the concept of a just and harmonious society. His Majesty, back in 2015, he spoke about how the aspiration of the country is to create and build a just and harmonious society. And the concept of a just and harmonious society is what inspires the Bhutan Baccalaureate learning process. Therefore, the entire learning process helps actualize the learners actualize their potential so that they become constructive and contributory citizens that will work towards the creation of the just and harmonious society. So, talking about the 5 areas of development, although I'm just going to focus on two, which is the social and emotional for this webinar. uh, I just like to bring your attention that these five areas of development are interconnected and therefore becomes imperative to be looked at as parts that needs equal attention, development, and growth for a person to emerge as wholesome. The interconnectedness between social and emotional area of development is that emotional looks at the relationship, a relationship with self. The If you look at, we have an internal world inside a community that is made up of emotions and feelings and thoughts, and it's also about learning to navigate through the internal environment that one has, while the social area of development is all about looking at your connection with the people around you, the physical environment, and learning to use that external physical environment to engage, to learn, and to um, just grow. And these two worlds, these two communities, the internal and the external, they are constantly influencing each other. And therefore, the ability for an individual to build a trusting relationship, not just with the community outside, but with the community inside, becomes the crux of social emotional learning here at the Academy. And in order to create a trusting relationship, a learner has to be able to, first of all, look at certain skills like being able to uh, be more mindful and develop awareness so that we are able to look at our own strengths, the areas that needs development, and just define what success is for ourselves in terms of thinking about the goals that you want to achieve in terms of your emotional development as well as your social development. So and all of these different aspects of an interaction with yourself and your outer world finds place in what we call the roadmap, which includes all the five areas of development. So everyone here at the Royal Academy is considered a learner. We have young learners and adult learners like myself. And every year we create what we call the roadmap at the beginning of the year. And this is important because the ownership of the learning is with the individual. We think about what is it that we want to learn, why is it important for the individual. We look at how do you want to learn it and what is the timeline that you're giving yourself in order to become better. So those are the things that become part of the roadmap. The first aspect in the creation of a roadmap is looking at your backstory. Where do you come from? The kind of experiences that you have, the kind of challenges that you have come across, the circumstances that you grew up in. So that is what we call the pre-knowledge. And examples of pre-knowledge in the social and emotional learning could be our mindset, our attitude towards circumstances, towards experiences, towards people, even towards ourselves. Like, how do you view yourself? And more importantly, our perspectives on different concepts. I think Dr. Ajanta spoke about different events that are happening around the world that brings about important concepts and people's perspectives, like on whether it's on racism, whether it's on education, whether it's on poverty, and things like that. And more importantly, we also look at how is it that we interact with ourselves as well as the world around us. Then through the backstory, we identify our areas of strength, and we also identify the areas that we need to work on. And this is important because uh, we use our strengths in order to lift the other people in our lives, as well as make an attempt to lift our community. So it's not about one's own growth in isolation from the others as well as from the community that you are a part of. And for that, we look at certain skills that you need, emotional skills, social skills. And some examples of these skills could be your ability to become aware of your social environment, your emotions, your feelings, being able to recognize what is it that you're feeling, how, what emotion are you experiencing, and more importantly, being able to develop a certain set of emotional and social vocabulary so that articulation becomes much more easier and much more efficient, because communication, just like trust is important for relationships, I think communication is also important, whether it's relationship with yourself or relationship with others. And the roadmap also plays a very fundamental role in terms of looking at assessment when it comes to social emotional learning. And here at the Royal Academy, assessment is very important because we look at it as the engine that drives the entire learning process, which is the continuous evolutionary process. And therefore, the assessment becomes part of a very big part of the learners here. And assessment here is done in the absence of numbers and grades. And I would like to go back to Dr. Ananta saying that you cannot use the same indicators to assess something different. Here, the understanding is if you reduce the growth, the dynamic growth, and the evolutionary development of an individual, if you reduce it to numbers and grades, we're just trying to quantify, and it will not be uh, as effective, as efficient, or even as dynamic as our own growth. So what we try and do is the assessment here is basically anecdotal, and it gives richer perspectives because it includes the inputs of the learners themselves through the self-assessment. So for me, I know what is it that I'm experiencing, what is important to me, what am I trying to achieve, and how am I trying to achieve it. Whether it's my own emotional goals or social goals, I look at my roadmap and I always assess myself based on my roadmap. Where am I right now? Where is it that I want to go? And at the same time, I also receive inputs from my peers. And it's the same for the young learners also. They do a lot of self reflection and introspection of where they are in terms of their roadmap. They receive inputs from their peers, from the other teachers, but more importantly, they receive inputs from the mentor teacher. And the mentor teacher has a very special kind of relationship and connection with the learners. And even adult learners like us, we go through the mentorship program where we work with other teachers. So through the anecdotal assessment, we are able to notice our strengths again, which we then use to raise our bar and to continuously grow. And at the same time, help others in the learning journey as well. Through it, we're also able to identify our areas that needs further development. So that becomes again part of our roadmap going forward. And the most interesting thing is the assessment comes through various perspectives, not just our own, and it gives a much more uh, richer picture of our own growth and development. But more importantly, I think it enhances the sense of ownership and responsibility of the learning journey. And that sense of responsibility and ownership is with the learners themselves. So, and it is also done in a manner which is holistic and comprehensive. Then we use the comprehensive assessment to further enhance and review and then recreate our roadmap in our own learning journey. The assessment and the feedback loop is important because it closes but does not end the circle of the learning process, which is involved in the creation, the implementation, and the benchmarking of our own growth based on the roadmap. So through the implementation and the assessment of the social and emotional learning, along with the along with the other areas of development, such as cerebral, physical, and spiritual, the ultimate goal for social emotional learning is to create that harmonious relationship between our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions and our speech, so that we in turn develop the skills to be a constructive and contributory member of our community. And when we talk about a community, It's both the internal community as well as the external community. So this is where I'll end. I look forward to more questions later. Thank you. We have four different reports going home. Two are basically progress letters, and the progress letter is explaining about the different learning terms that we have here and what happens in each of these terms. So we start off by looking at the backstory, the collection of the backstory, the collection of the baseline. So the baseline and the backstory gives you an idea of where you are as an individual or where you are as a learner. So that's get reported back to the parents, seeing that, oh, your child is here in the 5 areas of development. Your child is here in terms of English. Your child is here in terms of maths. And these are all anecdotal reports coming in from the mentor and the different subject teachers. We have two comprehensive reports that goes home. Again, sometime in June we sent one, and sometime towards the end of December we sent another. So those are very comprehensive report that looks at the child's learning journey over the year. So the one that goes home in June looks at the growth of a child starting from when he came in, and that is most probably most of the time the academic year starts in February. But this year it was a little different because of the situation that COVID has created for all of us. Uh, we're not able to really wrap up the academic session for 2020 as of now, and even waiting for our some of our students to come back to school. So the fine line between the 2 years, 2020 and 2021, it's very blurry at the moment. But on a normal year, we would send home one in June and one in December. And the December report is very comprehensive because it looks at the child's progress and growth over a year, starting from February all the way to December. And it includes a lot of information from the child's roadmap, the kind of experiences that he had on campus. And these experiences not just include the experiences on campus, the experiences that the child has had working with the members of the community, which is outside the school campus, uh, working with the natural environment that we have access to at the moment. We are located right on top of a mountain and surrounded by forest. So you can imagine the kind of experiences that the children would have, especially for people who come in from the southern plains who do not have the same kind of environment. So for them, it's a completely new experience. So those are the things that makes up the report rather than grades and numbers. When it comes to reports like ours, which is purely based on observations, whether you're observing yourself, whether it's someone else observing you, there will be certain biases coming in. And that is why I said that it's really important to understand your backstory, because your backstory actually gives you a better understanding of the biases that you already have and how that comes into play when you're making those observations, whether in yourself or in your learners as well as your peers. So the backstory and the study of the backstory gives you an understanding of that bias. And it would be wrong for me to say that we have removed all biases from the reporting system. I think somehow the or the other certain elements of biases will come into play. But like I said, it is not just one individual's perspective that is coming through. So if I say that I'm making exceptional progress, but if my peer thinks otherwise, I'll have to reflect on this. How is it that there is two different narratives about my own growth? And that is further on enhanced by a teacher that says, oh, yes, you are making exceptional progress, but these are certain elements that you need to focus on. So it's also about being able to compare the kind of inputs that are coming in and go through that reflective process together with your mentor teacher. So that is why I'm seeing the mentor teacher actually has a very special connection, because the mentor is supposed to be almost like a parent on campus. So you spend over 10 months with this individual, and some of the kids that we have here in current grade 12 are the ones that has been with us for the last 6 years. So the kind of understanding, the kind of progress, the kind of changes that we are able to notice and see in our student is of a completely different level. And I think the system that we have in place allows us to gain that better, gain that deeper understanding of the kind of progress that we are able to see in our children. So when it comes to the principal, we don't really have the principal. The entire functioning or the running of the school is done by the 5 coordinators. We do have a director, and the director is basically the one that drives you towards that vision of the creation of a just and harmonious society. And it is the 5 coordinators who the idea is that of a shared leadership. So for a week I am on duty, and how I run the school, how I function is completely different from the next coordinator who's going to run the school for the next week. So every week there is a different dynamic that is brought in by different leaderships by the coordinators. And it's the same with the timetable also. We don't have a fixed timetable, but there are certain non-negotiables on the timetable. And one of those non-negotiable is that 20 minutes quiet time in the morning, where the children and the teachers are just left on their own, and it is up to you what you do with the 20 minutes. But the idea is you have to be on your own. You have to look at your thoughts. You have to set the intention for the day, and how you do it is entirely up to individuals. So those are just examples of certain non-negotiables on the timetable. And when it comes to the principal, like I said, we don't have one. It's just the 5 coordinators. And within the 5 coordinators, our own understandings of the 5 areas of development constantly evolve based on our interaction with our learners, new information, new circumstances. For example, last year, I think our focus had to shift from the plans in the beginning of the year. And the majority of the students, as well as teachers, identified under emotional development that one area that they would like to focus on is how do you overcome distractions? Because learning was moved online. And when you move online, there are so many distractions online. And even I was telling my children that it's very difficult to stay focused on what you're doing online, because you see a pop-up and then says, oh, it's your friend's birthday, or somebody has dropped a hi, and it's very difficult for you not to respond to those distractions. So uh, a new learning for all of us last year was being able to overcome distractions. And in that, we're all working together, trying to identify what are those distractors and how do you reduce our interaction with those distractors. So it's very much a learning journey for the teachers as well as the students. The belief here is that everyone is born with innate goodness, and that comes from the kind of religious belief, the Buddhist belief that we have very strongly as part of our culture and tradition here. So we like to look at individuals as someone born with innate goodness, and it is just the different nurturing, I guess, and the circumstances and the environment that you are raised in that brings in the various of individuals. So our effort here is to connect with that goodness, and it somehow ties into what Dr. Tara was saying about recreating those neuropaths, whether it's being able to discover that I do have the ability to be kind, even if I don't want to. Uh, if you're coming from a home where you did not have enough, the idea of sharing is completely unthinkable for a child who did not have enough growing. And but like Dr. Tara said, there is hope for all of us. I think for the children, where it's easier to make that connection in their brain, they can actually learn how to be more kinder. They can actually learn how to be more compassionate and more empathetic. And these are goodness that can be relearned, even if you have forgotten in the process of growing up. You are right in saying that whatever the learning process that we have, it is just part of this one school, which is the Royal Academy, which is one aspect of the Royal Academy. And this year we have started working with two of the schools that are under the Ministry of Education. So we have already started our process of taking our learning experiences. But it's not about, again, uh, taking what fits for us and then saying, Here, we have this, and then you can take it and use it." But it's about going through that process from the very beginning with the two schools, because we spoke about contextualizing it and making sure that the learning process is individualized for the learners of a different school, of a different community, from a different home. So, for what works for us may not work for them. So, right now, our focus is just bringing the adults on board. And I feel like if you are able to bring the adults on board, the half the battle is won, because it's easier to work with children. They are very open to changes. They are very adaptable at the moment. It's just the adults that we're working with, and a fair amount of our interaction with the two new schools that we're working with will be spent on um, looking at the learning process as an individual growth, not as something that you will take directly to your students and the school, but using it to see yourself, look at your own growth, and see whether it makes sense to you or not. So, just when we think that we have the adults on board, then maybe we will be able to roll out in the other schools. At the moment, we do not have a lot of experience working with parents because, like I said, the students that attend the Royal Academy come from 20 districts. And although Bhutan may be very small, but due to the geographical features, just getting from one end of the country to the other end takes about 3, 4 days. And during the monsoon, it gets even worse. So, getting the parents involved about especially for the children who are coming from far-flung villages, is very difficult. And also the other fact is the kind of students that we have at the moment. Some are orphans, some are from the single-parent household. So and some are just busy. They do not have that finance, or in terms of financially, they're not able to make it to the school to discuss about this, because just making earning a livelihood is more important for them at the moment. So far we haven't really worked with the parents, and just including the parents of the children who can make it, who are available, would not be fair, in the sense that the kind of inputs, the kind of feedback, or the kind of work that we are able to do with them would not be as comprehensive as we want to. So, for the moment, we have left the parents, because, like I said, the students are on campus with the teachers for 10 months every year. So, we are practically their parents. And I think when it comes to working with teachers in terms of the social and emotional learning, and not just in these two areas but the other areas of development also, everyone is on board. Everyone is we have what we call the mentor mentee meeting, which is one of the non-negotiables. So every week you sit with your mentees, and usually a teacher would have a minimum of 10 at the moment, and it might go up to 15 depending on the number of students that we bring in every year. But we are capping at 15, so that that interaction remains efficient. So every Saturday we sit with our mentees, we talk about how um how the week was, where they are in terms of their roadmap. What is it that um, they think that they were successful in, and also thinking about what are some of the challenges. And we also talk about how do you overcome those challenges. Do you need support from each other? Do you need support from adults, or do you think this is something that you as a learner can overcome on your own, and you just need more time? So those are the things that goes becomes a part of the mentor mentee meeting. It's just about open communication. It's just about listening to the children, and it's also allowing them that space as well as that respect that they deserve in terms of sharing and then talking about their own growth and progress. Although we are looking at aesthetics as a subject when it comes to teaching of music and dances and things like that, art and craft, but we're also going beyond looking at aesthetics as a subject. That is by looking at aesthetics as a mindset. Uh, and when you have that mindset, you're looking at everything and looking at the value that offers, whether it's an experience, whether it's a connection, whether it's an object, it could be an art form, it could be a piece of music. So the value that you derive or that you place on someone or something or some experiences. The other one is through the lens of aesthetics, we try and discuss and have discussions on concepts like beauty and truth. What does it mean for individuals? What does it mean for children? And how do you use those understandings to look at your relationship with yourself, with others, with the world around you? And it could also be looking at the beauty in a particular music from different cultures. Bhutan is small, but we are very diverse and very rich in terms of our culture and tradition. And even within a very small district, you can have 3 or 4 different languages come across. And all this individual beauty and value and truth that you have as part of an individual and as part of a community is something that the kids bring from home, and we call them the 7 gifts. And the 7 gifts that they bring to school is the gifts of recipe from your community, the gift of a song, the gift of dance, the gift of stories, the gift of the local language, the gift of a traditional indigenous game that we have never heard of. So the school is actually a place where the individuals can actually bring about all those differences, but still find beauty and value and truth in what you are able to share. And it also uh, allows the learners to have a lot of sense of bigger ownership in terms of what is it that they're offering. And we're also looking at learners not just as somebody who's also always receiving, but learners as somebody who's actually going out there and exploring and discovering and bringing back to a community where everyone is willing to learn and receive what you have to share. And the other question was around how do you actually make sure that it becomes a part of a curriculum. And here it's quite the other way around. The subjects are centered or built upon, the curriculum is actually built on the 5 areas of development, which includes social and emotional learning. So that way it's very difficult to isolate English and just teach English and not focus on the social or the emotional aspect of the learners, of the teachers. And it's very difficult for us not to bring in those elements. So when you kind of like turn the table, and instead of having a curriculum that includes the 5 areas, if you have the 5 areas as a foundation where you include the subjects as one way that we have been able to successfully implement the 5 areas of development. And the other concept that we look at is we do not really look at the 5 areas or the different subjects that we learn in school in silos. I've talked about the interconnectedness. So everything is connected. There is always some connections. And for us as teachers is to be able to find those connection and show it to the children so that they are able to do it on their own. So in the process of bringing back a gift from their community, the kind of cerebral skills that they have to use. They need to design interview questionnaires. They have to have certain social skills when they're going out into the community and interacting with the elders and asking them questions. They need to have some technical skills also, whether you're recording the conversation and writing a transcript, or whether you are videotaping that conversation and then trying to create a movie out of it and things like that. So everything comes together under through the lens of cross pollination, and everything becomes connected: the people, the concepts, the skills, as well as the processes and the watermarks. But when it comes to recruiting people, we don't really have a set criteria saying that, oh, we need a master's degree applicant, or we're looking for somebody who has experience in terms of teaching. The only thing that we are keeping an eye out is for an individual who's willing to learn, who's open minded, and who has the rigor and the resilience to go through the process of learning and unlearning. Somebody who is not easily frustrated. And that is why when we look at the kind of composition of team that we have here, we have fresh graduates whose first job is here at the Royal Academy. And we also have experienced teachers. I have been teaching in government schools for the last 9 years. And on top of that, I have been with the Royal Academy for 7 years. So in my 15, 16 years of teaching and working with children, I see that if you have the ability to keep learning and allowing certain ownership and certain parts of your power as a teacher and then give it to the children, I think you're hired for the Royal Academy.
It's very much handpicked. Yeah.
Yes. And
And
we
teacher
onboard,
guides.
yeah,
Yeah.
when we onboard a new teacher, we take them through a process where they go through the 5 years of development, just like a new student would. And we don't have teacher guides, we don't have textbooks. The only thing that we have is a collection of His Majesty's speeches, because that's the through the speeches, what we have is we have um, trace to our history, where we come from, what are the strengths from our history, uh, current affairs, where are we now in terms of world economy, what is happening around the world, our current status, whether it's coping and responding to the pandemic, whether it's the kind of responses that we have for the education system during the pandemic and things like that. And we also have in place where we are going in terms of whether it's where we are going as a nation, where we are going as an individual. How do you contribute to the bigger vision? So that's the only thing that we have as part of our textbook. But other than that, we do not have textbooks for children, we do not have guidebooks for teachers. So that is because, like I said, everything needs to be contextualized. Whenever we have a new group of children, and we have the grades start from grade 7 all the way to 12, and every year the 12s pass out and the new group of 7s come in, and when they come in, they bring in a new dynamic, new backstories that will contextualize the entire learning process as well as the learning framework. So the only thing that is constant here is the concept of change. And we just need to be prepared, ready to respond and adjust and adapt to changes.